Uh, it's been a few weeks since I uploaded. I didn't mention in the last video, uh, I was just going to spend a lot more free time just reading a bit and trying to just read the texts for the little exams that we're doing at the end of the course. We just finished yesterday. Um, it was just like reading the texts and just trying to really meditate and rely on understanding concepts rather than trying to memorize uh, like arguments and points to e- explain your understanding of the psychoanalytic theory that we're studying, if that makes sense. So I was just busy doing that for a couple of weeks, moving as well. It looks a little bit more cramped, but it's not. This place is actually it's a lot more space than the apartment that I had in the last videos. It's just this nice little gap in the hallway for like a little study. So we just like rearranged the desk and made it like it's this cute little office. So no, I'm much happier here. I enjoyed the old place. It was a lot closer to work. It was a good area. Pretty. It was just overpriced. Like I found a bigger place, just further out from work. It's just a few more minutes. Like it's another 10, 15 minutes out. Um, yeah, it's funny. I was just watching the Tate video. Tell me about like he was um, stopping over a city. I think it was in Dubai when while he was waiting for his penthouse to be like prepared and cleaned or whatever, and then he was staying at another penthouse. It was 25,000 US like a night, and he just booked it for the month because he just liked it. So he didn't want anyone else in it. I mean, if you really understand it, it's not people with that money at that level. It's men with his understanding of how the world works. If you're not making if you're not making $1 million a month, you're broke, man. You're broke. That's how it is. Like from the beginning of human history, wealth is wealth. Power, ability, capability. You know what I mean? The wealth and power is just the same. Throughout the ages. And he understands that, and he is very unapologetically excited about it. And funny. We haven't got the marks yet for the exams. There's just 2 exams on psychoanalytic theory and psychoanalysis in Jungian psychology. And then there's 2 more next month on what's the next one? I think it's psychoanalysis in human history and mythology and theology. I can't remember the other one. It's just the really long names. They're pretty chill exams. They are long. They're very long. Like you're just writing analysis after analysis. We did the practice exam. We could just really submit like our personal psychoanalysis, just kind of a basic, like criteria for diagnosing just whoever you want to really practice on diagnosing and writing a psychoanalysis on. So I did a few family members, some friends. I did my ex. My ex partner was probably I mean, it's me and my ex-partner. We're probably the longest. Mine's still going. Maybe I'll read it out on the channel. Oh, I think it's kind of relevant. I mean, my whole channel is really based on psychology, and the most like I think the psychoanalysis where I was able to apply the most knowledge that I have is on the people in my life, family and ex-lovers. They're pretty much the people whom I transferred the most idealization to, which is, my parents, and, my first and only ex-partner. That's where I think as men, you really transfer all your idealization and your projection. So that was definitely the longest. The professor, who's the head of the whole program, spoke to me personally, and he told me that for the 2 practice exams, out of I think it's 50 to 60 students, I'm in the top 0.3%. And I thought I was reading it wrong. I honestly thought it was top 3%, and he said top 0.3%. And you only need to be really in the top 10% to be considered for scholarship by the institution, to be admitted really as a therapist by the institution. I wouldn't be interested really to be admitted by any psychological or scientific clinical practice, like any institute that teaches clinical practice. I wouldn't be interested to be admitted by any other place in the world, literally. The whole point of me discovering the truth about everything that I went through, the last few years, and just having this deep, deep, deep curiosity and hunger to understand what happened, right? Just what happened with me, not where I went wrong, and I wanted to know the mistakes. There's no mistakes. There's nothing negative at all. There's nothing negative, I just want to know what happened my whole life, right? And it's a Jungian psychology that explains it perfectly, man. Perfectly. I didn't know, I was just interested to learn. I wasn't interested to perform, right? But the level of competency, I don't elaborate much on the channel, even though sometimes I get into mild manic tangents. I could sound a bit confusing and disorientated because I'm trying to battle with myself. It's like mild schizophrenia as well. I'm trying to battle with myself to not go as deep, but go deep, but not go at full academic. I'm not trying to make it academic and I'm trying to make it just for trying to explain it in a way where my 22-year-old self would understand, my 23-year-old self would understand. Critical ages, man. I think, for a man, it's 20 to 25, depending on the city, depending on your family and your culture and everything. But for me, I think the most critical years were 20 to 25 in terms of understanding what I need to do, right? But they weren't the most critical as in it was make or break. I think it was critical time to be guided, a critical time to come across the right knowledge and mentorship, you know what I mean? In that 20 to 25, you know? If you can do it there, because you save everything valuable in a man's life: time, effort, money. Time, you know? But it's not critical in terms of making or breaking you as a man. Most of the students are in their 40s, in their 50s, some of them, a few of them in their 50s. A lot of them are psychotherapists that come from other schools, other colleges, other methods. I think there's a handful of, they're from like different countries. I'm trying to think. I think there's like 4 or 5 in their 20s. I'm not the youngest. There's one younger, and a couple in their 30s, but the vast majority in their 40s. They're all therapists. And the professor was saying they're from their reports that I was submitting. So this was 2 weeks ago. I don't want to pull up the emails and stuff now, but it was more in like private, just private Zoom calls. I'm just trying to like elaborate it in a way that doesn't sound too, I don't know, because I'm just shocked. Like, I was speechless, you know, like I am now. Like, they were saying like, I've managed to articulate my understanding and competency that they've put in a level. They don't grade you. There's no grades anymore in these colleges. You get like a marking. You get like a top category. You know what I mean? It's percentage. You're in the top 10 or the top 5 or the top 1, or you know, and you get like a personal interview on them explaining what level they think you're at with your competency, right? When it comes to understanding this psychoanalytic method, because they don't want to. This program is to get into clinical therapy. It's not. I mean, just the program is that advanced that if you manage to be deemed competent, you're a psychologist deemed by the institute, right? But you're not a therapist. You're not a therapist. You need to be in the top 10% to be even considered a potential. When they were telling me I was in the top 0.3%, it's pretty much with like 2 other students. So, who are professors, not professors, they're students of professors that are therapists, right? It's crazy. I think back to the days in high school, you know, and I remember like thinking, you know, in certain subjects, how are these kids I was good in a lot of subjects, you know, maths, physics. I was good in English, you know, but I remember in like other subjects, maybe specialists, methods, chemistry, or like literature, or I don't know, like subjects I wasn't really that interested in, and I found difficult to understand. And there were just kids getting like 100% A plus, A plus, A plus the whole year round. And I was like, how? Because I think the way you do it in high school is you just you study, and you kind of, it's just, you get graded on your memorization skills, right? So I was thinking like my method, my understanding was, I'm like, the reason why they're performing so well is because they're just reading, like they're just memorizing the answers that well, right? I didn't approach it maturely like I am now. Like, the reason why I can understand it is because, like, the reason why I want to read it 10 times over and meditate on it is because I'm so interested. You know what I mean? I'm finding it so beneficial. I don't see it as an effort, whereas in, like, back in high school, even my uni days, to study and memorize was an effort. You know what I mean? Not when I was in aviation. Like, I loved going to the classes and learning the physics, and the whole like geographical world of aviation, learning the navigation, meteorology, and all that. It was just fascinating. I was lazy. I was not lazy. I was distracted. I was distracted. 23 years old, man. 24 years old. Living alone. I was distracted. But now I don't find it like, it's not an effort at all. I'll just, like, read one of these, like, literally 15 times, and I'm just meditating on it. But I guess someone from the outside just sees it as like a kind of sociopathic, nerdy, abused, study grade addicted, like, kind of like just how you would think about it in high school. But really, it's just the fascination. It's just the fascination drives the competency, They were saying I could get into placement straight away next year. I could enroll. It's a long ass placement. It's like 5 to 7 years, and depending on the kind of therapy you really get into, it could go up to 10-year placement. It's like a 10-year training, or at least supervised, before you get admitted. So yeah, 0.3% of this psychotherapy traineeship program. It's an introductory course, just to get a real broad gauge on people's competency when it comes to Jungian psychology. So think of it as like a prerequisite, really, to get into therapy with this Jung Institute in Chicago. They're just the practice exams, you know what I mean? But, like, I didn't really take it as, they were real analysis. They were real analysis. So the practice ones are on, people in your life. So obviously, they're probably going to be much easier. I argued that it was easier, but the professor said don't underestimate, because a lot of therapists diagnose patients much easier than they're able to diagnose ex-partners, loved ones, because they're still under a narcissistic magician archetype. So they're unable to see their transference and their idealization of the person they're trying to diagnose. So they're unconscious to it. So they're not able to write an accurate analysis on them. So they said don't underestimate, because the practice could be much harder if you're doing own family members. But for some reason, I was like, wow, this is so easy for me to apply. The knowledge was just so easy to apply to the people that I wanted to diagnose and write my analysis. I think the one on me and my relationship was like 13, 14 pages. Maybe I'll read, I don't know. I was thinking about it, like just reading the whole thing out. you know, not as like a, I know it just seems like a emotional kind of thing, right? It was like a 5 or 4 year relationship, and just an immature, like, you know, just that immature phase, you know, that cultural immature kind of like secret relationship that you have. You know, a lot of guys go through it in my culture, girls or whatever. It's just understanding now what happened. Like, the thing is, you know, you think, like, you write letters to each other thinking that you understand what happened and what went on. And then you actually agree with it, you know, because you're just young and immature. Even at 24, 25, 26, 27, you even, like, you know, you're still immature because you're unconscious to what happened, where it went wrong. You think it was something that you both did to each other, you know. But then when you actually learn the psychology deeply, you're like, oh, wow. And it's, the feeling is like so unpersonal. You go from like this personal resentment, like a pain, like, oh, like, you know, just a normal toxic breakup, and you're like, you take it so personally. But when you understand the collective unconscious in our human psyche, and you realize, like, oh, like, this is why this person is like this, because they're raised by these type of people who are raised by this type of culture. And then you understand the psychology behind the culture itself. I mean, you get to the source, man. You get to the source. You go deep, you know. And when you get to the source, you're just humbled. You're just humbled, and you're like, wow, like, I really had no idea what the hell was going on. Not just with, you know, relationships, like family as well, you know, which I think is just the most important thing to do before you get into, before you get, like, into clinical therapy. You know what I mean? I know with this institute, they don't admit you, I think, until you've had at least 10 sessions. You have to be psychoanalyzed by one of their therapists. So, I mean, that's the most important thing before you do anything. Before you go out there and apply what you know, you suss out and assess the damage. Get a damage report. You know what I mean? Just get a damage report. Because you can't ever get one if you don't understand a psychological method, you know. Once you do this, the damage report, then you get like a whole blueprint understanding, like a map, right? A psychiatric, psychological map of the blueprint, the schematic, you know, manual on the human psyche. All right, parts. There's just parts, and there's like different, like, moving parts, right? And you just understand. Okay, you're learning. You're like a doctor. You're like a mechanic. Like a mechanic. That's, you know, it's a good example. You know, you just you have to understand engines, right? This is a good example now that I think about it. Like, how many different types of engines? They have different characteristics. You could almost say that they're archetypes, right? I mean, they're all combustion engines. You know, you have a normal piston engine, or like a jet engine, or you have a, you know, if you're into your old Japs, you got rotary engines. You got like, I'm trying to think of like all the different engines, all the different ways that we burn fuel and turn it into power, right? Think of like, motorcycle engines. You have single piston engines. You have your V8s, supercar engines. They all have different sounds. They have different characteristics. They have different statistics. They different behavioral, different behavioral aspects. But there is a universal understanding of how they function, which is they pump fuel into a cylinder bore that gets ignited by a spark plug that blows up, that causes like a mini explosion that causes the piston to compress, right, and generate power. That's the agenda. That's the blueprint, right? You're a mechanic. You're literally like a psyche, a mechanic for the psyche, right? The patient comes in and you have an understanding of how the mind works based on this method, right? But it doesn't mean they're going to have the same symptoms as every other engine that you diagnose as a mechanic. You know what I mean? There could be 100 things, 1,000 different things. Like you have 1,000 different patients with 1,000 different problems. But if you understand, the system, you can diagnose the problem. You can see where the fault lies. You know what I mean? You're just kind of like an engineer, like a mechanic. Just like in a way, I guess, to elaborate it, the difference between getting into psychology and becoming a psychologist and then getting into therapy. So they really, really encouraged me to come to Chicago next year and study in the institute, enroll into the placement to practice clinical therapy. And I wish I could. I will, but I just know that, even though I've changed my priorities a lot the last 2-3 years, I've changed like the mid priorities. The first priority is still becoming financially free and independent, completely independent, that's still first priority, and it's just not going to happen if I go study, 5 days a week in Chicago and live at the university, for the next 3-4 years, 5 years. This one was just more of an update, update. I'll upload more frequently. It's just the last few weeks just worked a lot and studied a lot. Still behind on a lot of stuff. I've been talking about the dragon a lot, Robert Moore's lectures. Been talking a lot about understanding, just the kind of gist and the reason and the main idea behind psychopathology. We got a bit deep, understanding why the professors give it this reptilian attribute, right, in your psyche. It camouflages. It has you convinced that it's not there. It has your conscious ego convinced. It has you exactly where it wants you. And when you kind of wake up a bit and you kind of look at it and make eye contact, it absolutely shits itself. But it will do an amazing job to reconvince you that it's not there. that your pathology and your addiction is actually you. It's your ego that's driving you to work, 70 hours and make $1 million a month. It has you thinking that, you desire divine status. Anyway, we'll leave it there. All right, I'll it's good to record again. Sorry about the garbage bag. Sorry, I went the wrong way. Yeah, I was moving clothes. I just finished moving like a week ago, so I was just moving the clothes around. But yeah, I'll see you soon, hopefully. And I'll leave it at there. Good luck. Good luck to you.